Story 1. Taking selfies on the edges of cliffs and leaning further out than necessary. When I went to Yellowstone, it seemed many people weren't aware that it can get you killed. Story 2. Infected tooth. Many people may ignore it due to the cost of going to the dentist, but the proximity of your teeth to the brain, neck, and sinuses can cause the infections to spread quickly into your head and cause encephalitis, which is often deadly. Story 3. Obvious, but it sure doesn't seem like it from people's behavior when driving. Be safe. Go with the speed of traffic, use turn signals, practice defensive driving, and use seatbelts. Story 4. A ruptured brain aneurysm is a silent killer. Most people don't even know they have one until it bursts, causing instant unconsciousness or death. It's scary how something so small can be so deadly. Story 5. People think that Visine added to a drink will cause diarrhea. Popular sitcoms and medical procedurals have even alluded to this. That is false. Visine added to a drink can cause seizures, cardiovascular collapse, coma, and death. It is not to be played with. Story 6. You would think power lines would be obvious, but you would be surprised by the number of people who think power lines carry the same voltage and amperage as a house outlet. I've seen police officers, emergency medical services personnel, and regular civilians walking around down lines that are still energized, with no idea that one step closer could be fatal. Story 7. Cervical neck adjustment from a careless chiropractor can too easily tear one of the 4 main arteries that form the circle of Willis at the base of your brain case, causing a hemorrhagic stroke. I worked for a neurologist for several years as a nurse. Not always deadly, but it can be. Saw several individuals in their 20s lose the ability to speak as well. Scary stuff. Story 8. Towing lines of all sorts, if they snap and you're in their way, you're not surviving that. I always thought everyone knows that, but in the last few years, I saw a lot of people standing 1 to 2 feet away from the lines or chains pulled by tractors or excavators trying to rescue some other vehicle or pull something heavy. Story 9. Differential pressure. Most people don't know anything about it, but it's what happens when you decide to clear something like a drain pipe by hand to prevent an area from flooding. When you do, it creates a suction that you cannot escape, so you drown when the water continues to rise, and you cannot escape because your arm is stuck in the pipe that the water should be using to drain. I usually read about differential pressure injuries in the scuba world when an untrained diver thinks they can clear a drain. Once they get stuck, for instance at the bottom of a swimming pool, they run out of air and die. But this happens outside of scuba too, so it's worth knowing about. In summary, think twice before clearing a drain and use the right tools when you do. Story 10. Enclosed spaces, specifically areas filled with any gas that is either toxic on its own or that displaces the oxygen in the space, can be dangerous. Enclosed spaces filled with an inert gas such as nitrogen, helium, or argon are especially hazardous because you'll pass out from hypoxia before you even realize something is wrong. Our bodies don't alert us to a lack of oxygen. It's the buildup of carbon dioxide that makes us feel like we're suffocating. In an oxygen-poor atmosphere where we can still expel carbon dioxide, we'll continue breathing until we quickly pass out and die shortly thereafter. Story 11. Electrical current in the ground. A high school teacher terrified us all one day with a story about a time when he was getting coffee. Across the street, he saw a construction crew lift a scaffold to carry it around the corner instead of taking it down and rebuilding it. While doing so, they bumped a power line and dropped dead. He saw people turning to go help the workers, stood up and shouted, "Stop! Don't go over there." One guy turned, gave him a sour look, then turned back towards the workers, took 2 more steps and died. 7 people died, 4 workers and 3 would-be helpers, before people finally listened to the physics teacher shouting about the power line. Story 12. Trees. I'm no arborist, but I work in landscaping and I've dabbled in pruning trees. I love learning about them, so much so that I considered going back to school to become an arborist. One of several reasons I decided against it was learning that it's the second most deadly job out there, with one arborist dying on the job every 3 days on average in the United States. I lurk in the arborist subreddit, and it's not uncommon to see people post photos in that subreddit of large limbs broken but still tangled up in the tree canopy. Homeowners ask that subreddit for advice on how they should do it themselves for the cleanup. I've done a little storm cleanup at work, and my boss told me it's the most dangerous work out of anything we do. When I'm pruning a healthy tree, I can generally see that if I cut the tree here, that branch is going to fall right here. With storm cleanup, it's very possible that I make one cut and suddenly a couple of tons of unstable wood shifts and comes crashing down on me in unexpected ways. I do a lot of camping, hiking, and lots of outdoor recreation. It's pretty well known in that world to look up when you're deciding where to pitch a tent. Don't sleep under dead trees that could fall on you in the night. That seems like common sense for people who like to spend time in forests, where nature is generally left to maintain herself and where broken branches are left hanging above nothing of importance until a gust of wind finishes the job. But to those who only ever see trees in urban settings, where they're carefully maintained to protect cars and pedestrians below, it's easy to underestimate the danger. Story 13. I work in laboratories. There is a room that contains all of the liquid nitrogen storage containers. Outside of the room is an oxygen meter. If the nitrogen isn't liquid and escapes the storage containers, the room is filled with nitrogen, not oxygen. So you check the oxygen meter because if you walk in and there's no oxygen, you will drop dead without even knowing it. Story 14. Shoveling snow, specifically when you throw it over your shoulder, can cause a widowmaker. If you shovel, keep it low and toss the snow from a low angle. Rest in peace, Uncle Barry. Story 15. As an electrician, I can tell you there are way too many people doing home renovations who have zero clue about electrical work outside of a 5-minute YouTube video. Now, I'm a big do-it-yourselfer myself, but electricity can and will kill you if you don't know what you're doing with it, and it will hurt the entire time while you're dying. Story 16. Driving. The fact that everyone already knows is the most dangerous part, because it's easy to ignore when you're reminded so often. The greatest trick car crashes ever pulled was convincing the world they couldn't happen to you. Story 17. Don't laugh. I had a zit on my forehead close to my hairline. I popped it, and instead of the goo coming out, it imploded. My forehead swelled up immediately. I got a raging headache, felt super hot, and felt nauseous. I went to the emergency room. The doctor said never to mess with a zit on your face, but especially your forehead or scalp. Took a week and a lot of antibiotics before I felt normal. So weird. And I felt very stupid. My baby boy was scared of me and my large forehead. Story 18. The head of a horse. If you were standing close to their head, one could quickly hit you with their giant heavy skull wrapped in a ton of muscle. You could easily become incapacitated or die. Story 19. Botulism. I know people are aware it's deadly, but I recently learned that just a single gram can kill 1 million people. Don't mess around when you're canning. Story 20. Bleeding out from an ulcer without having insurance. My 35-year-old daughter died on Christmas Eve morning. It started at midnight on the 23rd. By 2 in the morning on the 24th, she was gone. Story 21. I was shocked to learn about water intoxication, also known as hyponatremia. If you drink way too much water in a short period, it can mess up your electrolyte balance and cause your brain to swell. It is rare, but it can kill you pretty fast. Who knew hydration could be deadly? Story 22. Cat bites can become infected very quickly. Apparently, they can turn septic in a matter of hours. 4 years ago, our cat panicked and bit my son hard on the leg. I was surprised that our doctor told us to go to the emergency room. He was fine after a round of antibiotics, but I had no idea cat bites were so dangerous. This refers to bites that break the skin. Story 23. Climbing into manholes or sticking your head in because you lost something there is dangerous. They often contain asphyxiants. Your body only reacts to high carbon dioxide, not a lack of oxygen. There's no oxygen in the air, so you breathe it in, feel fine, and then fall over dead after 15 seconds. Climbing into a manhole, silo, or any closed structure to rescue someone who fell over dead is also dangerous. Don't do this. You're only adding to the death toll. Story 24. Flour or grain dust is more explosive than gunpowder. If a lot of it disperses, then stay clear of it. A relatively minor spark, like from a cigarette or static, could blow you up. Story 25. Air pressure guns like the ones you use to pump car tires. I've seen videos of people spraying their friends with air for fun. However, if they have a small cut or injury, The air, when pressurized to such a level, can force its way into their body or bloodstream, killing them incredibly quickly. Story 26. Used to be a show called 1000 Ways to Die about real-life freak accidents, and this one always stuck with me. A 60-foot cliff jump into water. In what would later be reported as a freak accident, Patrick hit the surface at 30 miles per hour, 48 kilometers per hour, at a perfect angle for a powerful jet of water to shoot up his rectum and blow out his large intestine. Massive internal bleeding caused him to pass out and drown. Story 27. Riptides. Rest in peace, Joey Bailey. He didn't even make it past second grade. He was the new kid, and then a few months later he was just gone. Our teacher explained the whole thing to us in moderate detail. His uncle apparently jumped in to save him, but he also got sucked under and pulled out to sea. If I recall correctly, they never found the bodies either. Story 28. Animal droppings. I was demolishing a building, and like all my fellow construction workers, figured masks are unnecessary. Well, a week later, I had the worst headaches of my life, couldn't eat, couldn't keep anything down, even water. Got tested for meningitis, negative, took some pain medication, and was told to come back if it got worse. I ended up coming back and being in the hospital for 2 weeks as I had apparently inhaled rat droppings that had turned to a fine dust, giving me both a bacterial and viral infection. Agonizing pain scared my wife to death. I've since learned to wear more safety gear no matter the opinions of my coworkers. It just took almost chopping a finger off and scratching my eye with a splinter of wood. Gloves, masks, goggles, I wear them all. Story 29. Beware of falling. I work in an emergency department, and probably 25% of our patients come in with the simple diagnosis of fall. Many of them don't leave the emergency department alive, and others are severely injured beyond what you would even comprehend when you think of a simple fall. Make sure there's nothing slippery on your floor, and ensure you have good shoes or grippy socks on slippery floors. Be aware of your surroundings. Watch out for throw rugs, pets, and small children. If you start to feel dizzy, just sit on the floor immediately. Sometimes you don't get any notice, and I wish you well. Inspect your parents' and grandparents' homes for potential dangers. Install hand grips in showers and stairwells. Make sure there aren't any slippery little rugs that could cause a trip. You don't have to be old to fall. I've seen many young lives affected as well. Be careful. Love, your Reddit mom. Story 30. If you are ever on a pig farm, never get into a pen with pigs, especially if you have an open wound. If a sow or boar knocks your feet from under you, you are in serious trouble. Seriously, I was a farm and ranch kid. Also, stay out of a grain bin. You don't know if there's a pocket in the grain that will collapse under your weight and suffocate you because you got into a bin that nobody should be in. That's especially true if it's running out the bottom. Holes form faster than you can scream if the grain is being unloaded from the bin. Story 31. I keep reading these and expecting to hear about how in 1998, The Undertaker threw mankind off hell in a cell, and he plummeted 16 feet through an announcer's table. Story 32. Cocaine can tear a hole in your heart with just one use, not even repeated use. Not many people know that. Hitting your head. People think you need to be going fast or fall from a distance. My relative had a patient who put his daughter on his motorcycle for a picture. It tipped over and she died instantly. She barely fell, didn't fall on anything blunt, just hit her head in the exact wrong way. She was 12. Anytime you hit your head, go to the doctor just in case. Food allergies. They can change. Just because you have a mild one, maybe you just get hives, but at any moment it can change and turn into anaphylaxis, so really anyone with allergies should have an epinephrine pen. Story 33. Acetaminophen. People treat Tylenol like a harmless general-purpose medicine, but approximately 1,600 Americans suffer liver failure from it every year. Use sparingly and never use while drinking. Story 34. Instantly? Prion kind of fall into that category, right? Once they get you, there's literally nothing and no amount of money that can save you. Story 35. A blowjob. Seriously. Gagging or overstimulation of the throat can trip the vagus nerve, which connects to the sinoatrial node of the heart. The sinoatrial node is the internal pacemaker of the heart, And in rare cases, the vagus nerve can destabilize it, leading to bradycardia, or even rarely the heart can stop, although the atrioventricular node will usually step in. The same thing can happen with pressure on the eyes or even breath holding. All very rare though. Story 36. Choking. Simply taking too big of a bite of food, not chewing enough, eating too fast, eating while lying down, sneezing while eating. Basically, we should all have endured at least one incident of a true Heimlich maneuver to save your life during a choking episode. The only thing is, will someone or yourself be able to save you? I had mine at age 7 while eating hot dogs at dinner with my parents. I swallowed a bite and it got stuck. I couldn't dislodge it with my drink. The liquid just sat on top. I couldn't speak. I couldn't make a sound. By the time I was rolling on the floor, we ate at the coffee table in the living room and I was on the end on the floor. My father saw me, jumped up, ran over, and did the Heimlich. It worked right away. Then he smacked my butt for scaring them and not chewing more carefully. We went right back to eating. I still worry about it while I live alone.